And welcome back to Sports Weekly on IEMG. I'm your host, Pep Fernandez. You know, this time of the year, it's kind of that crossover season between the championship time for the CIF Southern Section winter sports and the spring sports starting to begin. A quick shout out to San Bernardino Girls Water Polo. Just won a Division 5 championship. Now they go into the SoCal Regional Playoffs this week. And the Pacific Boys Basketball team, they're in the finals in Division 9. They'll play for the title later this week. But it's also spring sports time. We've got some local softball and baseball teams that have already started their season, including the Cajon softball team. Let's take you out to Laverne, the big Bonita tournament with some really good teams out there. We found Cajon opening their season with a couple games in the first day of the tournament. Early on, Lucerna jumps on the Cowgirls. Emma Apodaca, the two-run single, but Madison Gallardo in the circle gets the big strikeout there for the Cajon Cowgirls. Kind of a high scoring this one. Lucerna jumped out to an early lead. It was 9-2 at one point, but as you can say, you can never count out the Cajon Cowgirls. They would battle back in this one. And at this tournament, they do have a time limit on some of these games. The Cowgirls started battling back in this one. It was 9-4, but when time ran out, Lucerna would pick up the victory. 14-6, the final score in this one. In fact, Cajon would drop their first two games of the season on the opening day of the tournament. They'll be back in action later this week at another tough tournament at Etiwanda. So they have got a brutal non-league schedule. I mean, Coach Lee Haynes does that on purpose to get them ready, and they're not completely at full strength. There's some players they're waiting to get healthy or eligible, so this Cajon team will only be better as they go down the road, but they really battled some good teams out there at the Bonita tournament. We caught up with Coach Haynes after their second game against Lucerna. Again, that was a 14-6 final score. He says he was proud how his team responded, going down early, battling back, and the best is yet to come for the Cowgirls.
All right, we're catching up with Cajon softball coach Lee Haynes after their first games of the season. I mean, here we are. We're already into the softball season out here in Laverne. Coach, I know you guys are still looking for your first win of the year, but what kind of stood out to you if you're going to draw some positives?
Well, we hit the ball much better in the second game, and we came back, and actually we made a ball game of it. We're missing some kids. We have a couple hurt, and we're starting 4 freshmen today, and, you know, growing pains.
Yeah.
But, you know, we like what we have, and we're going to be much better as the season goes on.
So even early on in the season, I know obviously you play to win the game, right? But getting just some of the younger players too, just getting them experience and getting them at bats and innings, right? I mean, that's important too, right?
Absolutely. The first game, you could tell they were scared to death. Really, no other way to put it. And you could tell as the second game went on, they were much more relaxed, started hitting the ball better and doing everything better, really. But, yeah, when we get a couple of our injured players back who are veterans, you know, juniors and starters, and then we talked earlier, we have a pitcher that has to do the sit-out period right now. But when we get Alina Stevens back, we'll be a different team.
And you always play a tough non-league schedule. I mean, you go to some of these tournaments and see great competition. I mean, that's by design, right? You want to put your team up to some, you know, good competition.
Yeah, I mean, we want to only play the best. You're not going to get better if you don't play the best. And, you know, the goal is always the same at Cajon, and that's, you know, to win the CBL and to win CIF. I mean, that's always the goal. When it stops being the goal, then I'll stop being here.
All right, fair enough. That is Lee Haynes, the head softball coach here at Cajon High School.
Always good to catch up with Coach Haynes at Cajon. And again, some more tough games this week as the Cowgirls will be at the Etiwanda tournament. So as we caught up with Cajon at the Bonita tournament out in Laverne, a little bit closer to home, out at Redlands East Valley and Redlands High School, it was the 17th annual Redlands Invitational. Redlands East Valley taking on mighty Ramona. The Rams always tough. They always put together a really good team. They had a comfortable lead late in this game when Rev trying to answer the call here. Olivia Moore, the base hit, but what a relay by the Rams back to the plate. The out at home. Ramona finishing off that inning unscathed, and they led in this one by a score of 9-2. The Wildcats, they had Piper Silvestre in the circle, rings up a K there against the Rams, but Ramona really not giving the Wildcats a chance to get back into this one. The comebacker to the circle and the easy out at first. Now, this tournament also had a time limit on the games. Here's how this one ended. It was not exactly a walk-off home run, but Jada Norby, for the second time in this game, goes deep. She had 2 home runs for the Redlands East Valley Wildcats, but in the end, it was Ramona winning this by a score of 9-4. But Nordby had herself an afternoon with those 2 bombs against a very good Ramona team. This was, again, at the 17th Annual Redlands Invitational. All right, and finally, let's check in on the Aquinas softball team. They're taking on some really good teams out there at Chino Hills, the Big League Dreams facility. They were taking on Centennial, Centennial from the Big 8. And Savannah Estrada, the slugger for the Falcons, had a monster game in this one. Here she goes deep for a 3-run homer for the Falcons. They were up early on Centennial, and Estrada would continue to have a big game. She had an RBI single earlier. Then she had that 3-run home run, and then Estrada would come up a little bit later in the game. Nobody on board, but it wouldn't matter. Straight away center field, and Estrada goes deep again. Her second home run of the game. Aquinas beats Centennial by a final score of 9-1, and Estrada with a couple home runs in this game to power the Falcons. They're 2-1 to start the season, facing some really good teams here in tournament play. Congratulations to Aquinas. All right, the softball season rolls on. We'll probably have more softball highlights next week here on Sports Weekly on IEMG. In the meantime, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. I'm Pep Fernandez, and we'll see you next time on Sports Weekly on IEMG.